physical world we can see, hear, touch, taste, and smell. But some say there is a world beyond these senses, the unseen, intangible world inhabited by gods, spirits, demons, and angels.
Human beings are symbol makers, and we are because human beings have been aware since perhaps the dawn of time that there is this real part of reality, the kind that we can touch. As I'm sitting in this chair, I can touch this, and I can touch my body, and I can see you, and all of these are things that one can perceive with your senses. But we've also been aware that there is another level of reality which is not perceivable through those senses. And so we have found ways to use those things that are in that tangible world to stand for the things that are in this other world, this intangible world.
Since the beginning of time, mankind acknowledged this spiritual kingdom, and many were able to discern it through the senses most of us no longer possess. Modern technology has consigned all things unseen to the shadowy corners of superstition, myth, and fairy tale. As we become increasingly materialistic, we've chosen to make science our religion. And we've surrendered our spiritual beliefs at its altar. Nevertheless, not believing in something makes it no less real, and ignoring it does not make it go away. As you join us on our journey, you'll find that the spirit realm is very real, and much evidence abounds of its existence.
I simply have to believe that there is life after death, probably also because not only that life wouldn't have meaning without it, but life is a mystery anyway.
And there are still people who can perceive and communicate with this unseen universe. Lorraine Warren is one person in touch with that other universe, and she will be our guide on this particular journey. Lorraine and her husband Ed are cited by United Press International as being among the foremost authorities of ghosts and the supernatural. And the Wall Street Journal refers to the Warrens as specialists in spirits, demons, and poltergeists. Trained as ghost hunters and demonologists, Ed and Lorraine have been closely identified with several world-famous cases, including the real-life account featured in the film Amityville Horror, and have authored a dozen books on the subject of hauntings and possession. Join us for this rare opportunity to hear the real-life impressions of clairvoyant Lorraine Warren as we embark on the journey beyond.
Something has been destroyed here, I think, and it's been built on again.
This is the one area that seemed to hold the vibrations where sickness and death took place.
The ghost just avoided a gap. And she was working, but I just saw that that's on his body.
This place was active. Oh, what? This is active haunting.
You can still hear the screams floating out over these little streets.
You can see quite off. A ghost.
It was a very warm magazine, and suddenly it was biting midwinter where he was looking at.
Where we're at is probably the most haunted location in England.
There is another level of reality which is not perceivable through those senses.
And all of a sudden the dog just went absolutely mad at the fireplace.
And if you get angry with them for switching things off, it gets worse.
It is thought that some hauntings are not personal entities at all, but are only impressions. Experts have theorized that certain materials can sometimes record traumatic events of the past. These images are then played back, much like a loop of movie film or videotape. We encounter a number of places where tragedies of another time seem to reenact themselves in just this way. Not far from the rugged North Sea coast in Norfolk, England, is Castle Rising, once home to the Earls of Essex, the Howard Dukes of Norfolk, and the Black Prince. While historians agree that the castle has a somewhat enigmatic past, we uncover a hint of the secrets which continue to reverberate within its ancient walls. The castle itself is a classic example of Norman architecture, and was built shortly after the Norman conquest in 1106. It is surrounded by a formidable earthworks consisting of deep ditches and high embankments, all of which cover over 12 acres. The castle is dominated by a rectangular keep or grand tower, built by William Albini II as he and his new bride celebrated their marriage. But what historical reports cannot tell us, a clairvoyant may be able to describe in vivid detail.
The unconscious it seems to be almost limitless. I mean, we don't know just how far things come from. We don't know how much other people's unconscious influence ours. Whether we can take over states of mind that really exist somewhere else. And something that we love or close to could be thousands of miles away. Something could be happening there, which comes to us as a real urgency.
We encounter no spirit entities on this visit, but as Lorraine enters what was once a chapel on the second floor of the castle, she is immediately struck by intense feelings of anguish and horrible smells of death, confronting what appears to be the recording of an age-old tragedy.
We're in Castle Rising in Norfolk, England. This building that we're in dates back to 1160-something. This is the one area that seemed to hold the vibrations of a horrible tragedy where sickness and death took place. History tells us that the monks of old would take care of the dying in an infirmary. I don't see a monk, but of course, this was only a temporary infirmary. Maybe they were separated from the others because they had the plague. The floors were covered with hay, and I could see a woman ministering to them. She was duty herself. Her clothing wasn't really like dress. It was wrapped around her. I could smell a hideous, horrible smell of rotting flesh and dying people, and certainly feel their pain. And these walls just seem to hold the vibrations. They just remain on here, probably will remain on here forever because of what had taken place.
To say the walls hold vibrations may not be far from scientific truth. Flintstone, used in the past as a building material in England, is a special variety of the mineral quartz. Historically used to amplify radio transmissions, quartz crystals also have the ability to hold frequencies in a stable way so they don't change over time. Much like the silicon used in a computer microchip, Flint has the physical ability to trap and replay images with the precision of a crystal-controlled oscillator. Flint may also play a part in the supernatural phenomena people have experienced time and time again at Borley Church grounds. Anyone familiar with English ghosts has heard of Borley Church near Long Melford, Suffolk, commonly known as the most haunted place in England. Borley Church and its surrounding property date back to the 12th century, but it was Reverend Bull who built the rectory in 1863. The rectory was the center of much of the ghostly phenomena, but although it burned down in 1939, the hauntings have continued. Headless coachmen on ghostly coaches pulled by two bay horses race down its pathways. Shades of monks and nuns wander the grounds. Mysterious lights are seen, and dragging footsteps heard in rooms devoid of human inhabitants. Poltergeist activity and mysterious messages carved into walls were just some of the events recorded in the Reverend L.A. Foister's diary earlier in this century.
The area we're at, Borley Church grounds, is probably and has been for a number of years the most haunted location in England. Borley itself goes back to the 12th century. That is an ancient building. A great deal of it is made from flintstone. They're like microchips. They hold vibrations. There was Reverend Bull who was buried here. that was responsible for building Borley Rectory in 1863. The original structure was destroyed by fire. When it burnt down, there was a book written, The End of Borley Rectory. It may have been the end of Borley Rectory, but certainly not the end of the hauntings that were taking place. The Borley nun, who has been witnessed and experienced by many, many people, dates back in the early 1800s. It is said that she had an affair with a monk, and she was walled up. Her remains were found, and they are buried at Liston Graveyard, where we also have psychic photographs. But on one occasion, I could see psychically this monk figure. We were in the church. There was a group of us. We had people from the very prestigious Ghost Club of Great Britain with us, as well as some of our own people. I stood by the altar, and I felt very influenced by this spirit that was right directly in front of me. Very, very strongly, I felt that. And then I began to see this monk figure, and I could see the hood, could see his hands, could even see the folds of this garb that he had on, whatever the garment was that he was wearing, the tunic. It went right down. I could see that. I could tell he wasn't a big man, but the most amazing thing was that he had this huge book in front of him. And I watched the pages moving. And as the pages moved, I said, my God, they must be parchment. Look how much substance they have. And although nobody could see it with the physical eye, not even me, because I was seeing it psychically, it was picked up on film. The Borley nun, we could actually see that. All of us, everyone that was in Borley Church that night, in the middle of the night, could see the Borley nun coming right down the middle of her. It was very, very beautiful. There is just so much to this ancient building. I guess you might say it kind of holds mysteries to life itself, what it's really all about. Tragedies create the ghost syndrome. This church has known more than its share of tragedies, and because of that, the hauntings still continue there today. The older the area, the more chance of tragedies in that area. But then we have spirits that remain on because of the fact that they don't really feel there's anything waiting for them on the other side. So for that reason, they stay with what they knew and are comfortable with. They don't want to go on. They just want to stay right there.
Although single entities are more common, multiple personalities can be found at many sites. For example, the Golden Fleece is a small, intimate hotel and pub situated at the end of a quaint medieval street in the walled city of York that is reported to have several manifestations. David and Sally Pine are the proprietors of this venerable edifice, which traces back to the early 1500s. On our visit there, Lorraine walks through the hotel to pick up her own impressions before talking with the proprietors.
Feel a man's presence. Feel kind of like a jokester, like someone that would do something like to kid around or joke around. Nothing very malicious about it. More like human. I don't even feel like the presence of a spirit is that older person. I don't feel they died here, but I feel there's a great deal of association here. The first time that we were aware of it was when people have reported seeing sightings of ghosts upstairs. And has any of you had that experience? Well, my daughter has. She has. Where? What part of the building? Upstairs where the airman was supposedly killed. It was her bedroom. And when she was about 2 years old, she used to wake up screaming every single night.
Same as the man in my room, in a uniform, like a policeman. She was only 2, so that's a 2-year-old child. And this went on for about 8 months. We actually took her to the hospital to see a paediatrician. And he said that she was perfectly normal. And we moved her out of that bedroom. And from the second we moved her out of that bedroom, she never had a problem.
Now, they mentioned something also about in the kitchen, things happening in the kitchen.
Yeah, in fact, we have had plates that have flown across the kitchen with meals on them and have just dropped down and landed without smashing. And there is a definite feeling in the kitchen of somebody standing behind you.
And what about this front bar, the bar in the front of the building?
Well, this is all new to us, this front one in the front of the building. This has only cropped up last week when a paranormal expert came and said there was definitely one in the front bar, but we've never experienced anything in there.
That is the strongest vibrations in the whole
So we were told last week, so that is what we're told. But it's actually in the corner over there where the other ghost was seen.
So you're beginning to become aware of the fact that there is a chance that your place is haunted.
Oh, I think it is, without a doubt.
Among the spirits residing there is a man said to be a foreign Air Force pilot or officer who develops a special attraction to an American tourist.
April Keenan came. It was Easter last year. She came and she stayed in one of our bedrooms, which was room 4. And in the morning she came down and I said to her, have you had a good night's sleep? And she said, well, no, I haven't actually. So I said, oh dear, what was the problem? You know, was it traffic? Was it noisy or something? So she said, no, something was pulling at me in the night. She said it was pulling at my feet and tugging at my hair. She said it kept me awake all night. She said my husband was fast asleep, so was my daughter. So I said, oh, you know, well, I said it could well be the spirit that we are supposed to have. We are supposed to have one upstairs. Which she was quite convinced it was, obviously, a ghost or a spirit, an entity of some sort. She was quite convinced of this. And that was the end of that. They checked out and they went. And then it was about 4 months later, I got a phone call in the early hours of the morning from April Keenan, who said to me, I don't know if you remember me, and I said, oh yes, I do. And she said, well, I know you're going to think I'm stupid, but the ghost has come back with me. And she said, it's making my life hell. She said, my life's a complete misery. Those were her words. She said she couldn't sleep, it was doing all sorts of things to her, and it was horrendous. So I contacted Cyril Smith from New Horizons Paranormal Group, and we held several channeling sessions, and he did then put this spirit Monroe through the light. When I rang April the following week, she had no idea that we'd had this channeling session, and she said it had gone, and she didn't know that we'd had this session.
But in 1995, almost exactly 1 year after April Keenan's experience, another episode occurs that bears an uncanny resemblance to the earlier encounter, when a family came to dine at the inn.
This year, on almost the same day, I think it was about 2 days out, same week, Easter week, a family came in to the pub and they dined and they had a drink. And the daughter, who was 13, moved and sat next to her mum and said to her mum, oh, I don't want to sit there anymore, I don't want to sit next to that man in the mucky old Mac anymore. And her mum said, what man in an old Mac? I mean, in an old Mac. And she said, well, the one that sat there. And of course there was nobody there.
Energy many times is usually coming from a child, and in most cases a female child, about the age of puberty. And the energy from their sexual frustrations and anxieties going through that very important period of time in their life enables what is there to be attracted to them. And they're attracted by the aura, the supernatural glow that emanates from our physical body. And this aura tells exactly the type of person that we are.
So they left, the daughter and the mother left, and the father came up to the bar to speak to Craig, who was the barman. And Craig was explaining to the father about the spirit that we'd had last year, and he gave him the newspaper cuttings. And as he was reading the newspaper cuttings, he said to Craig, I can't believe what I'm reading here. And Craig said, why? And he said, well, that's my daughter's name as well, it's Keenan. And so it was exactly the same name as a woman that had seen it last year, and it was at the same time of year.
Is it possible that the ghost of the airman has returned to the tavern? Or could it be a a prank played by the new jokester entity that Lorraine refers to? Or is it just a coincidence, nothing more than an arbitrary haunting in a pub riddled with otherworldly clientele?
I feel that the person who is here is a younger man. It's not an old man. I don't feel he lost his life in this building.
Well, he didn't, no. This one that was saying, we've got to know when he was 83 years old.
Oh no, this man is much younger than 83 years old.
It's another one, we're going off and forward.
Well, the thing is, you may have more than one spirit. I mean, remember that where you have one spirit, you have others. So I think that there's a good chance that it isn't all associated with just the one spirit. Like what your little girl may have seen as a child, as a baby, might be one spirit, and what is going on in these other incidents could be something altogether different. But they're all associated one way or the other.
Yes, that's all. It's all amazing though.
They may stay more or less held back, held down in one particular confined area of the building and may not even be aware that other spirits are there. But remember always, Jim, that like attracts like. So they tend to be attracted to somebody they'd be attracted to in life.
Not all ghosts are harbingers of tragedy. Some, for whatever reason, are no more than mischievous sprites, childish pranksters who play harmless tricks. Some years ago, when Ken Lavery purchased the George Inn, located on the main road in Shalford, England, he had heard rumors of such a spirit, the ghost of a little girl who reportedly haunted the establishment and played pranks on the owners.
Well, when we opened, there's a chap across the road. We were talking about things that go bump in the night, and he said, well, we had one. A little girl we've heard crying.
When I saw her, she stood where you're standing now, right where you're standing now.
That you saw it?
Oh yeah, one afternoon, like today, I think it was about this time of year, and I just ran up the stairs and went to go in the bedroom, and she was just there, standing there, this kind of little gingham, grey, sort of check pattern on, and not long hair, but shoulder length. And by the time I turned around to think whatever was there, it was just faded away.
Before we opened the place, I'd heard several people in the village just stop me and told me about this little girl that lives here, a bit of a prankster.
You know, when you're in there, it just swings open and does it.
Wow.
And it doesn't matter how many times you shut it, it does.
You can shut it and latch it.
And latch it, and make sure, and I mean, we tried it more than once at first because it worried the wife. But after a while, we just used to say to her, look, leave the door open.
I thought, I can't really handle one of these. I just asked a lady to come along. She went into the room that was giving problems to everybody. And she found the room and said, we'll just do your thing. And
Yeah, get rid of it.
the silly part about it is that the girl used to come from here to across the road. And we coincided that when I had this clairvoyant, his ghost disappeared as well. So she
helped the spirit to accept its life and leave.
Yeah. Sometimes it is just through communication. Other times it requires a blessing. Sometimes I could just sit down and actually talk to the person, just like I'm talking to you, and ask them about their parents or husbands or wives or children that have passed on before them, and to think of them. Ask them about God, and if they believed in God, and if God was in their life, and to call on Him, and to go towards the light. There are many ways.
But even with the little girl gone, the inn didn't return to normalcy. As we discover when we investigate the property for ourselves, the little girl wasn't the only otherworldly inhabitant. In fact, the place had attracted other unseen visitors.
This place is active. Oh no, this is active haunting. Whatever it is comes up from the downstairs, comes up these stairs. You start to hear once you're down that way, you run out of it. And this is the center of it. This is the center of it. It's a woman, but downstairs I felt the strong presence of a man. But not even same time periods. They're all together different. I have no idea how strong this man's presence is. painfully strong because his death was far more painful. The woman seems to be a person who is just not at peace with herself at all, having a strong connection to the building, not so much through ownership, but through association and through time, a lot of time involved with where she is concerned. The man, on the other hand, downstairs, I get the feeling of a murder. Whatever happened to him happened to him through someone he met at this location. Definitely.
I've got a black Labrador dog, and I took him over to see the landlord the first night we brought him. And he went into, when you go in the pub door, the room, it's a restaurant. Went into there, there's a big fireplace, and the dog sat there. The dog's never been in the pub before. And the landlady was behind the bar, and all of a sudden the dog just went absolutely mad at the fireplace. Hackles came up, backed off. The landlady left the bar and wouldn't come back downstairs again.
The time period would about be late 1700s, the beginning of the 1800s. The man's time period is different. It's later than that. She goes back quite a ways. Now, she could become active from time to time. Her attraction would be to women who she's seeking some sort of solace with, and compassion, understanding, everything she didn't have in her life. But he's very bitter. He's a very bitter man. And so he would tend to stay.
For this reason, I think it's very important that we try to resolve everything in this present life. Everything that comes to us as a problem or a challenge, or we know is meant for us in some way, whether so-called good or evil, it's in our best interest to live with it and face it and try to truly resolve it.
All of us need to live in a more balanced way. And the spiritual life needs to be attended to. If it's not, then we're not well. We're simply not well. The spiritual life holds up the rest. It holds up our spiritual, our emotional life, and our physical life.
This woman is about only in her 30s. I think this was her room. I feel that this is where she spent her time. But she's here. She's here. You feel it. You feel it very, very strong. I could walk throughout a whole house and feel fine. I could go into one room and suddenly I get this very either lightheaded or very heavy feeling that will come right over me. And I no longer feel alone. I feel that someone or something, depending on what I'm dealing with, is there with me. Now, it can manifest in many ways. I can feel the pain of the person, the anguish of the person, the psychological state of mind of the individual, if I'm dealing with an individual now. Or I can just see the whole setting as it once was, how they died. Was it tragic? Are they still there? Or is it just their impression that's there, not really them, just an impression left because of their close affiliation with that building?
One Sunday night, my son, who's 16, was screaming his head off in his bedroom. And I'm obviously running to see him, and he's under the bed covers. I said, "What the hell's the matter?" He said, "There's a woman at the end of my bed." I said, "No, nice." I've been at the beer again, and he wouldn't come out from under the covers. And then, as I said, we had a restaurant, but once a month we used to allow, once a week, the young farmers used to use it. And they used to have
visitors, like i.e. the head Alcoholics Anonymous came one week to give them a check, or the Salvation Army. We had 3 clairvoyants came once, and after their meeting in the restaurant, they came out to the bar, and the clairvoyant ordered a couple of cups of tea and a drink. And he said, "I've just been talking to your ghost." And here we go. Another one, and he said, "Yeah," he said, "she's very happy living here. It's a nice pub, and there's always music, and she's quite happy to live there." I said, "Well, yeah, go and have a word with my son, will you?" I said, "He's seen it." And because I didn't really believe my son, and my son came running back, and he said he described her to a T. And she was about, what was it? 18th century, big bustle on her back of her dress, and I described her, everything she was wearing.
Going further north into Scotland, one encounters the imposing heights of Edinburgh Castle and the ancient Royal Mile. In the shadow of this aged roadway is walled Mary King's Close, once a major thoroughfare back in the 16th and 17th centuries. Shops and residences once lined this busy street, which was originally called Alexander King's Close after Mary's father. But a dark turn of events caused it to become known as Bloody Mary's Close, and it now lies sealed off beneath the byways and structures of modern-day Edinburgh. So come as we travel underground to learn of the extraordinary events that turned this once bustling concourse into a corridor of horrifying memories.
Right, now this is Mary King's Close. A close left from the High Street up there. We could walk straight up through there and come out in the High Street at that arch beside the wooden door that we came in. Up there, in that black ceiling, that's the pavement we walked along. Before, all this here was open air. And up there now, there's 2 windows, you see. There's two knobs. There's an old stone staircase that ran down the wall. Now, come in here, first of all. The story is this. In 1600, that was a busy wee street. Its name was Alexander King's Close, as Alexander King was one of the owners or landlords that lived in the close. Mary King, of course, was his daughter, and they all lived together quite happily. 1600, all was well. 1645, the Black Plague hit Edinburgh, and everybody on the close here started to die off with the plague, one by one. As they died off, they were just carried from the houses here up to the top of the close where the high street is, and dumped on a car and taken away to the place.
The first signs of infection by the plague are inflammation and swelling of the lymph nodes, or buboes, hence giving it the name bubonic plague. The second stage of the disease involves the respiratory system, producing pneumonia-like symptoms with a high fever and making the disease highly contagious through airborne transmission. Sometimes a rash appears accompanied by changes in blood pressure, and occasionally black pustules will form. During the final stage of the disease, the virus invades the bloodstream, causing septicemia and bringing about rapid deterioration and death.
Everybody down here vanished. There was no bodies left in the houses, because there was nobody left to take them away. Plague raged through the town until at long last itself, as they call it, disappeared. And the people came back into town and into the houses down here. But they didn't stay there long, because this close and the houses are haunted. Mary King walks up and down here to this day, and she has been seen, because we know what she looks like. It's a lady or a girl, just like you say, and it's got a long coat on and a bun in her head. Yes, there are people like you that see them. In fact, I've never seen them, but there are people that see these ghosts floating about. Mary King's been seen up here, and she's been seen down at the bottom. So everybody cleared up. Nobody would live in a haunted house or a haunted close. It's empty. closed top. Americans close got the name of Bloody Mary's Close. Nobody would live in it. Lay empty. Lay empty for years and years. Nobody would come near it.
Hauntings frequently originate in great tragedy and pain, and little in history matches the horror of the Black Plague. Young and old, rich and poor, all were vulnerable as this dark specter cut a wide swath through the countryside. York, England was one of the many towns whose populace was decimated by the Black Death, and to this day its cobbled alleyways and crooked buildings abound with apparitions and spirits. Ghostly encounters have been well documented and accepted as credible by respected members of the community.
The public interest is what activates the spirit world. And yes, we do see more case histories. We do see more phenomena occurring. We also see a great deal more interest.
Ghost tours are popular, and we thought it would be interesting to follow one such tour as it made its way through city streets. We pause at the home of a young plague victim.
What we do know about this house is that some 400 years ago, a man lived here with his wife and their little daughter. She was about 2.5. And one night, as they were putting her to bed, they saw that she had under her arms some black balls. Well, they're not very nice. I've got them now. It's quite painful. You know, when you squeeze them, all that salad cream stuff comes out. In those days, of course, they were the first signs of the Black Death, the plague, the most infectious disease from which few people ever recovered. And the authorities at the time insisted that in any house where there was somebody suffering from the Black Death, they should mark the front door with a cross to warn everybody to keep away. Well, they did this, and they looked after the little girl as best they could, but she got worse and worse, and they became more and more frightened of catching the disease, and eventually, one day, they just walked out. They walked out of the front door, they shut the door, and they never came back. They left the little girl inside the house, and of course, nobody came to her rescue because of that cross on the front door. In fact, she died of starvation in this house. She died in the room behind that little window up there. People passing there in the night have occasionally seen a child looking out of that window, but more often they just hear the sound of crying, sobbing in the night, the child crying behind that window. The gentleman who lives in the house, he didn't believe in ghosts when he came here, but he's heard her quite often. And of course, like all ghostly happenings, when you get up to investigate, nothing. The sound stopped, there was nobody there. There they are, gather round, gather round. Now standing in front of the treasurer's house, very beautiful house as you can see there. You can see through the gateway slightly sideways. Now the property of the National Trust. It was built in 1647, which makes it quite modern by York standards. It is very haunted. It is the most haunted house in York. There are said to be ghosts in every room. But there is one particularly interesting ghost story attaching to this building. Probably the most famous ghost story in England. In the early 1950s, a young plumber's apprentice called Harry Martindale was working in the cellars underneath the house. He was up a ladder working on the pipework on the wall when he heard a sound like a trumpet. Just let that thing pass. Nasty modern thing. 20 years out of date. Yes, he heard this sound like a trumpet. He thought it was a bit odd as he was in the cellars underneath the house, but he thought it must be a motor car horn in the streets behind the building there. As you can see, you do get cars around here occasionally. So he went on working, paying no attention. But a few moments later, he heard the same sound again, and this time much closer and much louder, and that did worry him. So he got down off his ladder and he looked around, and to his horror, he saw, coming out of the solid brick wall, the horse's head. The head came out of the wall and the whole horse followed it with a rider on its back, a man in Roman uniform. He rode out of the wall and across the cellar, and he was followed by some 16 men on foot. They were wearing helmets and a kind of short green tunic. They carried a round shield on the right arm, swords at their belts, spear in the other hand. The man just behind the leader on the horse was, of course, carrying the trumpet. They marched across the cellar, but Harry said the odd thing about it was they seemed to be sunk into the floor. They were almost wading across the cellar. You could see nothing of their legs below the knee at all. They kind of waded across, and they disappeared into the far wall. And when the last man had disappeared, Harry did not wait to see if there were any more of these men. He took to his heels and he fled, thus becoming the last Briton to run from the Roman legions in Iberacum. But as soon as he got out of the cellar, he told his friends and his colleagues what he had seen. They didn't believe him, of course. It was a bit far-fetched, didn't it? A whole group of Romans marching across the cellar. But Harry insisted this is what he had seen. And he went on telling people, and they went on disbelieving him for some 10 years. And then there were workmen again in that cellar. They were digging up the floor on this occasion, and they found some 14 inches below the present floor level the remains of a Roman road. It turned out ultimately to be the Via Decumina, which came in through the eastern gate of the Roman fortress, which was directly behind the house here, not where our present medieval gate is. And the road ran through the gate straight up to the Praetorian headquarters, which was on the site of the minster there. So it became obvious that the men had been marching not on the present-day floor level, but on the old Roman road underneath. But still they didn't believe Harry, because the historian said the clothing and equipment that he had described with such accuracy did not tally with anything they knew of the legion stationed here in Iberacum at the time. So they still didn't believe him. But a few years after that, more information came to light. They were excavating a burial site to the south of the city, and it appeared that what Harry had seen were members of the 9th Legion. Now, the 9th Legion were auxiliaries. They were not regular legionary troops. They did carry a round shield, and not the rectangular shield of the Roman legions, and they didn't wear the hoopy bronze armour of Rome. They did wear this sort of short green tunic. They were, in fact, exactly as Harry had described them. But of course, the odd thing about it is that when Harry saw these men and described them in such detail, nobody knew what the 9th Legion looked like. So there was no way he could have invented that. He also said that they looked dispirited. He was insistent about this. They looked tired, dispirited, kind of run down. They were grubby, unshaven. And we don't know why this was. It remains something of a mystery. Perhaps they'd been attacked out in the forest adulteries to the east of the city there. Maybe they were wiped out. This patrol could have been totally killed. Perhaps that is why they still march up and down this road 2,000 years later, to get back into the citadel that they never made while they were alive. We shall never know the truth of it. Not the only ghost story attaching to this building, of course. In that room there, with the arch topped with windows, which is a bedroom, a murder was committed in 1862. A gentleman stabbed his wife to death. He stabbed her 27 times before calling it a day. Ungentlemanly, I thought it. It is said you can still hear the screams floating out over these little streets in the early hours of the morning. Could it be that murder is still being committed? Or is it that the poor lady still feels the sharp prick of the knife as it goes through the outer layers of tissue into the soft, squidgy bit in the middle?
Evil lurks in the spiritual world, and our next two stories deal with a clammy hand of the darker side of the paranormal. The mischievous and the malicious. In Tweeddale, in the township of Peebleshire, situated on the border between England and Scotland, is a hotel to which the Warrens have devoted many years of study. At the Cross Keys Hotel, the famous 300-year-old coaching inn of Sir Walter Scott, we find a spirit whose mood ranges from finickiness to malevolency. Marion Ritchie, or Meg as hotel employees refer to her, the first landlady of the hotel, died in 1822, but seems reluctant to leave. But after so many years, her presence has come to be accepted by proprietors, staff, and guests as part of the hotel's appeal.
Many years ago, when we went to the Cross Keys Hotel, I had gone down in the basement area. It wasn't as renovated as it is today. Now it's been all taken over. But I want to tell you, there was a very obstinate, mean type of spirit that was there. She was a very angry woman, and she still seems to be angry even today.
When we arrived, we were told all about Meg, and she's the lady in the book. She was here in about 1870, and she died here. Apparently, we were told that she was left off. Her name was left off the grave, family grave. So her spirit was still here, and her ghost was still here. I didn't really believe in ghosts when I came here, but we were told that she didn't like untidy. And she looked after the hotel for us. And anybody who caused any hassle in the hotel, she sorted out. And Renata and I are pretty untidy, so a few couple of days went by, and our room was totally untidy. And we were sleeping in the night time, and a frame on the wall fell down onto a pile of clothes at the bottom on the floor and woke us up. And we just thought, well, that's nothing, and we thought, well, we'll pick up the clothes anyway. So picked up all the clothes and just shoved them on the couch in our room. I didn't clean it up or anything, just shoved it on the couch. And we put the frame back up again. And in the morning when we woke up, the frame was down on the ground again, and it had broken into pieces. And I told some of the staff about it, and they said, yes, it's Meg, she doesn't like untidiness.
But Meg sometimes takes a nasty turn and goes way beyond mere annoyances. On one occasion recently, the ghost attacked a carpenter working alone in an upstairs room of the hotel, causing physical injury.
Oh, he was just working up on the roof. I think he was putting these panels or something like that. He was the only one in here, and he was supposed to go back downstairs, and he never got there. They didn't know where he was, and they found him quite a while later. And he was lying on the floor, and he'd been hit on the head. He had to have stitches and all the rest.
Does he remember that happening?
He just remembers getting hit on the back there, but there was nobody in here. And there was nothing that could have fallen him. So apparently that was Meg as well.
Do you know what he was hit with?
No.
No blood or anything, right?
Well, not anybody else's, but his, because he had to have stitches.
Yeah.
That's what I do, yeah.
I talked to him the other day, I talked to him the other day, and he had been, about 10 minutes before he got hit, he had been in a room with another guy working. They were building this place, and he had been slagging on it. They'd been making fun of the ghost and talking about her and making kind of dirty jokes about her. And so then he came down 10 minutes later and got hit on the back of the head.
And the other day I was in a room up in room 3, and in room 1, and there's a closet, indoor closet, a walk-in closet, and there's a whole lot of hangers there, and I was just valeting the room, and I came in, and I was making the bed, and just standing still, and straightening out the bed, and I heard a rattling in the cupboard, and it was rattling away, and I opened the cupboard, and there was nothing there. So I closed it again, and I carried on making the bed. I just thought, it's probably wind or something. Carried on making the bed, and then it carried on doing it. And I opened it again, and it was just, all the hangers were swaying from side to side, as if something was moving them the whole time. And they were rattling like this the whole time. And so I got pretty scared, and I finished making the bed, and I quickly just left. And I came downstairs, and I told Natalie about it, and she said, that could be where she keeps her clothes, her ghost clothes, and she was probably looking for something to wear.
They kind of caught right up in it. They almost seem to be playing along with it, almost like it has commercial value, and that's very dangerous. I mean, they're giving so much recognition to this spirit, and what they're really doing is attracting others. So part of the time it might be Mary and Richie, but what they are doing with all this recognition is to actually invite other things in. Because where there is one spirit, there is always more than one.
Matthew was open, and I just saw that someone's body. There was sort of the white part, like the top where they left was her, coming around the corner of the stairs, but very quickly, just a flash, and then towards the bathroom. And I jumped up, because there was no one staying in the hotel, and I came through, and when I opened the door, there was no one there. So that was really weird, because I definitely saw something. I just saw like that side of someone's body. It was definitely like a person, and I saw a white shirt. But that's all I saw. And I sort of told myself I'd seen things.
And the one thing that we became aware of very, very early on is that she didn't want any foreigners other than people of Scottish descent. Particularly, she didn't want any English ownership.
This is the only place she's been seen. It's supposed to be a different presence along here somewhere. And this American tourist was coming up the stairs. He was at the top over there, and as he got to the top and turned around, he saw her, he claims. So he ran to him and got his camera, and when he got back, standing at the top of the stairs, and he couldn't see her. And so he just stood there, and someone pushed him down the stairs and broke both his legs.
People being pushed and shoved and being hurt, these all fall into the category of something that a human spirit wouldn't have the energy to do, nor to bring about. But also realize that it creates tremendous fear, and the energy that the individual throws off through that fear allows it to be much stronger.
Having a haunted hotel can sometimes be a draw, but sometimes it can scare people away. Two young women who had traveled from Australia to work in England for the summer are frightened away within a week of their arrival at Cross Keys and swear they'll never return.
There were two Australian girls here, and when they first arrived, they were standing army, and they were also pretty untidy. And what happened one night, for the first couple of nights, they had nightmares. And then one night, they woke up in the middle of the night, and the whole mirror was just cracked on one side. And the next night, they woke up, and they saw one was doing that.
And they got a bit of a fight, and they thought it was the bar manager Gordon that used to work here. And his room was across the hall, and they thought it was him. They came up to the door, and they got to give him a fight, and there was no one there. And they went through to his room, and they told him what had happened. And he said that he'd heard it, but he thought it was the wind, not from the window or the door thing, but it wasn't windy outside. So that was pretty weird as well. And then that night, they stayed awake for a while, and then the one girl drifted off to sleep, and the other one sat here with a golf club. and she was petrified.
And they saw the door opening and a hand coming through. It was like with white chiffon sleeves, and they just saw the hand coming through, and it was going like this. And they thought, oh well, she wants us to get out. And they got a real big fright and left straight away. But the only other place is, no, she was just telling you to clean up because your place is a mess.
Well, there was this lady, Irene, that was on Sunday night, and she went into the ladies downstairs in the bar, and as she came out of the cubicle next door, the toilet flushed, and the door opened. There was no one in there. And she left pretty soon after that, and she got a bit of a fright. It was the most recent. Sunday night, so 3 nights ago.
And then one night I was working in the bar and went upstairs to just have a cigarette for a cigarette break. And I heard knocking on the window like this, and footsteps on this roof outside. And I just thought it was some person, so I came to the window, looked outside, and there's a small door just at the bottom over here that just went open and closed, and it makes a noise, goes whoop, whoop, but nobody was there. And so well, it must be somebody. So I walked back to my bed and I was sitting there by myself, and it was knock like this again. I went to the window down. Somebody's trying to get in, and there was nobody there. So the screen door got open and closed again. So I got a bit of a fright, and I sort of left my cigarette and ran out.
Well, some might say it was mischievous, but it was beyond mischievous when she would push people downstairs, shove a vacuum cleaner right downstairs, move things that were rather heavy. So she may have had the help of the inhuman, but I felt her very, very strongly on the basement level of that dwelling.
Immediately I just walked in down to change the cake, and she turned around and Meg was standing there, and then she just disappeared. And she was wearing this old chiffon top and the long black skirt and then these old pointy brown shoes. And everyone has seen Meg. She's been wearing the same thing, one shirt and black skirt.
Demonic phenomena is the most destructive, the most dangerous, the most cunning. You never seem to ever be able to outwit it. It can affect you on your weakest, most vulnerable levels. You find that where possession cases are concerned, or very serious cases of haunting phenomena in homes.
Werewolves, vampires, the stuff of horror films. Reports of lycanthropy, the changing of man into wolf, go back to ancient Greece, and perhaps even back to ancient tribal times. Gypsy tales told of wolves turning into men, and medieval medical accounts bear witness to such transformations. When in London several years ago, Ed and Lorraine encountered a modern-day case, that of William David Ramsey, a man possessed by the spirit of a wolf. Bill Ramsey's ordeal began when he was just 9 years old. While playing in his backyard one sunny afternoon, an uncontrollable rage overtook him. In a flash, he began pulling up deep sunken fence posts out of the ground and ripping apart the wire fencing with his bare teeth.
It's something I'd always remembered, but of course couldn't really understand what was happening then. I say, had I never met you people, well, obviously I never would have put the connection between what happened that day and what was to happen later on in life.
We met Bill Ramsey by seeing his case be portrayed in a documentary on American television. And from that day, normally I don't feel that strongly about something by watching it on TV, but there was something about it.
All it was to me was a very strange experience of a hot summer day turning into a winter's day within seconds almost, and a totally uncontrollable rage and with strength that no child of that age had ever had. I mean, to pull stakes this big out of the ground, out of concrete, and just smash them on the ground shouldn't happen, it can't happen.
Young Ramsey kept memories of the episode repressed for years afterward. After reaching adulthood and marrying, Bill had recurring seizure-like attacks in which he felt the wolf personality start to take over his body. One evening, thinking he was having a heart attack, Bill entered the emergency room of a local hospital. During the examination, he became possessed and savagely attacked the nurses, orderlies, a doctor, and a police officer. Headlines in the local newspaper called him the Wolfman.
I think there was a small article in the local newspaper. I think it was more of a jokey headline because of the attack itself was what they saw as like a movie werewolf, I suppose. And I don't think the local press meant any more than that. Apparently, I tried to make a civil arrest on a prostitute, and I should never understand why I chose to do that. I drove into the police yard at the back. I suppose a partial transfiguration had occurred at that time because she rushed in and said, "There's something happening behind the van out there, you know," and she was frightened. She didn't care what she was doing, they arrested her for prostitution or whatever. Didn't matter anymore. Get that guy out of the van, you know? And it was Terry Fisher, the first officer, big desk sergeant, brawny guy, he came out ready just to make a simple arrest, or at least talk to me, find out whatever was going on.
When I was to meet Terry Fisher, this man towered over Bill Ramsey, very physically fit man. But when Bill Ramsey would come under possession, he had superhuman strength.
And apparently I flew at him, and he went down on his back, and I just put my hands around his throat, and he said he tried everything known to man to try and shift me. So it was just my hands were like a vice, nothing could move it. And he built his big boot up, bush, and built it in between my legs, but if anything, it just made me stronger and stronger still. But he was fortunate that he shouted out for reinforcements, some help from inside the station. They must have thought, well, it was been a long time. Then they could hear him shouting. I think there must have been 10, 12 officers eventually came out. And it took all 12 of them really to get me under some sort of hardly arrest at that, because most of them had been thrown off, tried to get back, been thrown off again, and back they kept coming. I admire their persistence and everything else. But they managed to half drag me, half pull me, whatever, through into the holding cell. Once in, bang, slammed the door, and thank God for that. But they said I went quiet for a while. Then they could hear a hell of a row going on in the cells. And they merely came down to probably tell me to shut up or whatever. And in the door of the cell, there was a little opening. I think they're about 10 inches by 8 inches. They're not very big. All it is sufficient to pass a cut through, I would think, or not even a plate. I doubt you'd get a plate through it, but I would think about a tea or something, I suppose, is the idea there. And I somehow have managed to get virtually the upper part of my body through this, my arm, top there, my head, right the way through this. And they just couldn't believe what was going on. The hand that was through had gone claw-like, and they were looking at this transfiguration. Virtually awful is the way they described it. This, as I say, was some demonic illusion. There's no actual physical, we all know it's biologically impossible for anybody's body to change.
He transfigured when the spirit would actually take over him, the wolf spirit that took over Bill Ramsey, so that what he was doing, or what the spirit was doing in him, I should say, is projecting telepathically to, say, the police officers who were victims, or to the nurse or people in the hospital that were victims. They would see this hideous wolf-like creature, is the best way of putting it.
The local press seemed to be on the understanding it was me making all these claims. It was me saying I was doing this. Well, I hadn't said a thing. I hadn't claimed anything. It was police officers, it was doctors, it was nurses, a lot of credible people. They were saying them, not me.
Who were witnesses to it.
Who were all witnesses.
Yes.
And then they asked me, well, I don't know. I asked them, I don't know. I wasn't, my mind wasn't of this earth, as it were.
Ramsey's affliction baffled the medical establishment. He was subjected to brain scans, x-rays, and hours of interviews and consultations at the Runwell Mental Facility. But nothing was discovered that would explain his physical transformation and superhuman strength.
I don't think the first question is where it comes from. The first question that we know is a stranger, and we're terrified of it as a rule. We don't know. I mean, it's obviously, whether it belongs to us or not, it's still intruding, and it has to be dealt with. And each time it did was always the prayer, I suppose, the wishing that, yeah, it's gone now.
Don't let this happen to me again.
Of course, it was only wishful thinking, because every time they did come back, and every time they did come back, it was worse than the time before. They took me to mental hospitals.
Yes, well,
they didn't treat me as some complete idiot. They really wanted to find the bottom of this. And I've heard such a thing as possession. I've never seen anybody change their form as a result of this, in this acute way. But I think in general the principle would be, in the kind of psychology that I do, or psychotherapy, to try to get the person to make a relationship with that other being, which is of a possessive nature. Because the more relationship there is, the less possession.
But in their own words, she said, I honestly haven't a clue. So I really, it defies everything that I try. There's some stumbling block. Why it can't be that? It can't be schizophrenia. It can't be manic depression. It can't be this, because every avenue they look, there was a stumbling block. Why it just couldn't be? And she said, I think it's lycanthropy, perhaps. So now I'm going to be thrown out of my profession for even suggesting this, but I can't find anything else.
Transfiguration can happen in the angelic world, or it can happen in the demonic world. And that is where a spirit can actually transfigure to look like something altogether different than what it really is.
The Warrens became aware of Ramsay when he appeared on a London television program and made arrangements to meet and talk with him. Convinced that he was legitimate, they offered to bring him over to the United States for one final attempt at curing his mysterious affliction.
I mean, I was ill, as far as I was concerned, medically ill somewhere, and only medicine would cure that. Not a mumbo-jumbo exorcism, that couldn't do it. But what the hell, they're paying me to go, and I've never been to America. It seemed like a good trip to me, let's do it. So it wasn't a question of getting well by faith. I sat at the front, I felt a fool, quite honestly. But then I felt myself start to shake, and I thought, oh Christ, it's during the day here, and something's gonna happen here.
During the exorcism, when the muscles in the back of his neck all enlarged, when the ears pointed, when the hands, according to the medical doctors, clawed in the manner no human hand could do, that was truthfully happening during the time that the spirit took him over.
All I remember was actually, it's like a mist clearing and looking straight up into Bishop McKenna's face. And I felt, this thing is just gone. And I just knew it had. I didn't need telling, I knew that was it. We're all medicine, we're all psychology, everything else had failed. I knew he hadn't, I knew he'd won.
And Bill Ramsay was successfully exorcised in July of 1989 and has never come under attack again.
There is an interaction with that which is evil. The thing for me that saves us, is that when we come to the resurrection, we then see that God is overcome. But the issue of good and evil is that they do exist, and they do interact.
I don't think that good and evil are constantly in battle with each other, as it does appear to us here, it seems to me. But that the good, as I see it, is something which has a totality of acceptance of life, which can embrace all of life. Therefore, it embraces all that we call evil as well. And if we can understand that, it seems to me evil more or less finds its place and even can be transformed.
Although I knew the man was an atheist, the one thing that really, really registered with me was the fact that his hobby was raising roses. So I thought where he couldn't find God in the conventional way, he could find it in the beauty of something God created.
The trauma of being burned alive can leave impressions that linger for centuries. Northeast of London, in the village of Wethersfield, is the Dog Inn, a pub built on a site that suffered a devastating fire long ago. Its present occupants include a number of earthbound entities. Innkeeper Ron Caldarelli talks about the building's tragic history.
We've had some meetings come along. We wanted to sit in the cellar for a while. One time she was in quite a state. She was crying, tears everywhere. Apparently she went back to before this building was built, the building was on the site. And there was 3 monks burning light on the site, and she said she actually felt it and she said she'd seen the monks.
Ron's brother Reno is co-proprietor of the Dog Inn.
Something has been destroyed here, I think, and it's been burnt up again. So I think there's probably been an inn on this side for a long time, probably 500, 600 years. There's been some kind of inn here.
After investigating without Lorraine, our camera crew brings her to the inn, eager to see how the stories they collected beforehand will compare with Lorraine's impressions of the location. Both Reno and Ron had witnessed apparitions of the dog. Several elements of their accounts parallel what Lorraine perceives.
The both men, one's in here are both men. But they play tricks. They would walk right up to you.
First one I come across, there was more of a mischievous spirit, things happening in the place, switches get switched off. Seems to be looking after me though, because I was working under a sink trying to repair it. As there's some very silly electric saw where I should have been using a drill. I got a tap on the shoulder. I can't see who it was. I thought it was sort of dusty eyes and everything. Not a bit of there.
This one guy, he would be a troublesome person if he'd be in the pub. He'd be boisterous and loud and troublesome. And the more he had to drink, the louder and more boisterous he would become. And he was just like this in spirit. He's kind of a no-nonsense character that's really could cause some problems.
So the one that shuts off the...
Yeah, he would shut off things, he would move things.
There was one definite thing one night. One of my younger customers had some drawings and artwork it had done, brought it to show me. And one of them wasn't very pleasant. It was sort of somebody peeling some skin back or something like that. It wasn't very nice at all. I said, what went through your mind when you were drawing that? And the light switched off, I could hear it clicking off.
Really?
And then push dimmers.
The actual switch?
The switches, yeah, but behind the bar. There was nobody behind the bar. I heard it click off and the lights went off, so I looked down. I had to go and switch them back on again.
The most colorful one that you have here is that older man. And I believe he could have been a stable hand.
Quite likely that was what's this interpreted.
Yeah, I believe he could have definitely been a stable hand because yeah, both of them are. Both of them are earthbound.
I mean, many previous landlords have experienced the sort of things that we have. It's well known, it's fairly well documented that there's always been a presence in the pub.
The landlord was the other pub in the village, was landlord here for a while. And I think it was this room he came into and found his dog laying on its back, and the hairs moving where its belly was being rubbed. I think it's this one. But they used to tease the ghost, so they had a lot of activity. Sort of bets on who would switch all the lights and see if someone would walk through this area and then go to the other. You know, get a free pint of beer and that sort of thing. Yeah. And I think they really teased it. Because the more you do tease it or get angry with it, the worse things get. Until it's very difficult even to pour a pint of beer.
Yeah.
Because all the CO2 gas and that's all switched off. These ones have been switched off. Switched off from the no, just straight off and cuts a beer off immediately. And these gas ones here. So it's a gas vent, not the easiest thing to switch.
Spirits would turn on light fixtures, open and close doors, and cabinets, and things of this nature, strictly for attention.
And if you get angry with them for switching things off, it gets worse. It happens more often, yeah. We have to please don't. We're really trying to work hard here and not stop for a while.
I came down to change a beer barrel and I thought somebody had straight.
The guy's name is Kendrick. Kendrick. His name is Kendrick. I don't know. It's the young guy. The young guy is easy to communicate with. The old guy, he's a character.
With no previous information about the spirit's clothing, Lorraine describes details about what the spirits are wearing. Her descriptions are identical to those given by the Caldarelli brothers. She describes one as oddly dressed, a stable hand, seaman, or butler, wearing a dark jacket which falls just below the waist with tight-fitting pants. The other, Kendrith, is a young man, short in stature, wearing a white shirt and knickers.
I've seen two. Must be from this build, when this building was first built. Looks like a butler, a tall man. The other one's quite a stocky man with a white shirt.
He's wearing clothing that almost reminds me of a seaman. A sweater that comes very high at his neckline. A jacket that is like just below the waist on him. The pants that he is wearing are fit to him. And they're not in the best of condition.
The tall gentleman was dressed strangely, as if it was from the Georgian period, sort of dark clothes. It could have been a butler, that sort of long jacket. He just sort of walked across and the sandwich in the back. Must have been the servants' quarters and the kitchens and so on down there.
Did they look solid, or was it sort of the transparent look that people imagine goes
solid? Very solid. But not there for long.
I was stuck in this bar one night when I thought there was somebody following me around, darting behind me, sort of looking out. There's sort of stocky man, I suppose 28 years old, with white shirt and dark trousers. I've seen him since. And over in this section over here, that's where I've seen the tall man.
Wasn't it realising, well, I haven't got much here, but it raised the hair. You could really have a beard standing on end from time to time. And even Nick's experience that just can't walk right through me. He comes up with the hair standing on end. Yeah, that's what it feels like, someone's running right through you.
Could you describe what the young man is wearing? Is that like the person I've seen is the only one you're talking about?
You've seen him. This man is wearing clothes that I see a shirt on him. And I don't see outer clothes.
I'm sure that's exactly what I've seen.
That's exactly.
Shirt is quite a bit ribbing.
Well, here it's got that's fine.
Well, I've seen on the bottom half of them their breeches. They don't go there, they come down to the bottom. I see them ending here on the cuff.
They're like knickers. They're like our knickers. And he's wearing a white shirt and no outer clothing.
Exactly what I've seen in the corner.
The personality does live on. So the type of person they were in life, they are in spirit. That's why some of them are so hard to really communicate with. And children are the worst. That is the hardest and the saddest. Because children are very frightened and they don't know you. And you have to try to be as soothing and understanding and compassionate as you possibly can where they're concerned. What do you think, Scott? Why are you there?
Now, darling, no more stories. I'll tell you why. Now, this wee room here is a nice wee room. It's got a wooden floor. But this is a haunted room. This room is haunted. It's haunted by two things. It's haunted by the voice of a crying boy. A wee sweep. You know, sweeps went up chimneys. I went up this chimney, he got stuck, and they dug him out of that hole. Now that can be true.
Is that a dungeon?
No, it's ground level. Now the other thing that haunts this room is a ghost. The ghost of a little girl. You don't see me here? is sitting on a stool in that corner. She'd been seen quite often, a ghost. She'd been seen in colour. Got a green dress, dark hair and ringlets. And a shawl on her shoulders.
Has she been seen recently?
Yes, she was seen last August. A lady such as you. She saw her. And she was a Japanese medium.
Oh, yes.
She came down here with a few friends, was visiting a province. They weren't tourists, they were these business people.
Yes.
And she saw her. And she got in touch with her. And she got her name, and she's Dana. And that's the second time I've heard that name. Dana, D-A-N-A, Dana. The wee girl got in touch with the medium, and she asked her for a doll and sweets. Hence the doll. The lady fished in her handbag and she had a doll for a souvenir. She left it there. Hence the wee doll. And there's the two sweets.
The two sweets. And then look at all the stuffed toys.
That is misguided people coming down here and left all these sort of things here on there. Round here. And nothing to do with this story.
Have they ever been moved?
No, never been moved. So I put them in there out the way.
Yes.
Because it nothing to do with the original story at all.
No, but it would make the child happy.
Yes, but she can get that if she wants money. Yeah?
Yes.
And that is the original doll the lady left.
The children's spirits are very hard, and it is usually relatives, parents or grandparents, or aunts or uncles or other siblings that hold them earthbound because of their grieving.
As we've just seen, accidents also took their toll of human life in ancient times, just as they do today, and children are often the victims. Let us return to York and hear about how a young girl named Flossie met an untimely and tragic end.
And I standing in front of number 41 Stonegate, formerly known as Raffles Tea Rooms or the House of Tweed, which is what it was when the little ghost books you can buy around the city were written. But before that, it was the home of a Victorian doctor, who lived there with his wife and their little daughter. Little one girl. He was 8, ladies and gentlemen. An odd coincidence with her. And she slept right up there in the attic, right at the top, the highest window you can see up there. The good doctor was famous for giving parties for his friends and for his clients. And one day he was giving a party here in the front of the house. And he was very proud of little Flossie. She was a pretty little thing, very popular. And he liked to introduce Flossie to the party guests. So when he got her in, introduced her to all the guests, Trevor off in fact. And then, of course, he told her to go up to bed. Well, like all children, she was a little reluctant to go to bed, but she was persuaded in the end, and she went reluctantly up the stairs to bed. Well, one of the features of this house is a most magnificent staircase. It rises from the basement to the attics. It's built around a stairwell, and it goes right the way up through the house. But Flossie went over there up these stairs to her little bedroom at the top, but she couldn't sleep. So after a while she got up again and came out across the landing to see what was going on with the party down below. And she went over the balusters, and unfortunately she missed her footing and she fell 95 feet into the basement, where she broke her little neck. She didn't fall cleanly, she bounced. They found some of her teeth on the stairs, the pieces of skin with hair on them. And when she hit the floor at the bottom, her brains blubulated out all over the baby. And she's haunted this building ever since. I was surprised. She's a poltergeist. She moves things about. And sometimes, even as I'm telling this story, The sign above us moved slowly in the breeze. We're joking apart. One day, Pat, who was the manageress of the tool shop, was working here in the front of the shop, and she turned round and saw at the back of the shop, sitting on a shelf, was a pretty little blonde girl. She was long blonde hair, very pretty, wearing a Victorian costume, just sitting on that shelf, swinging her legs and paying no attention to anybody. Well, Pat, thinking that she must be a daughter of one of her customers, went to the back of the shop to tell the child to get down. And as she approached, the little girl disappeared slowly into the wall. And she realized that she had seen the ghost of Flossie. But this is the only time she's ever been seen, and Pat is quite certain about this. She's quite sure of what she did see. She's told everyone about it. It's in the ghost books. She's even been on television with the story. But of course, that isn't the end of the tale, because the people who work here in the shop and the people who live above it in the house above have quite often heard those reluctant little footsteps going up the stairs, the way Flossie went on her last night.